Every morning at 4:45 a.m., the building came alive not with board members or executives, but with the shuffle of Darius's boots. He was the invisible man at Elian Capital, 53 years old, tall but bent from years of scrubbing tile floors and emptying out corner offices. A single father with deep lines under his eyes and a southern drawl that made some execs smirk behind their lattes. Especially Jason Langford, the youngest VP in the firm, heir to the CEO, who loved throwing digs like, "Darius, you missed a spot. Maybe your GED skipped that part?" Everyone laughed. No one stopped it. One day, Darius overheard Jason mocking him again, right in front of his son, who had quietly come to visit before a hospital appointment. The boy's heart condition was worsening, but Jason didn't care. That night, Darius stayed late, cleaned the floor where his son had stood, whispered something we'll never forget, and the next morning, every TV in the city was playing the same story: a janitor, a viral video, a secret no one saw coming. They thought it would go like it always had, but this time, they chose the wrong one. What would you do if this happened to your family? Like and subscribe if you believe respect must be earned, not assumed. The first time we meet Darius Owens, he's standing at a bus stop under a flickering street lamp. It's 4:42 in the morning. The sky's still black, cold biting through his jacket. He doesn't flinch. His work boots are cracked at the toe, his thermos dented, but he stands tall, like a man who's been through fire and still refuses to bend. He watches for the number 6 crossdown. Same route, same stop, same time. Every day for the past 11 years. Darius is a janitor. But not just any janitor. He's the one who makes sure Elian Capital, one of the most powerful financial firms in the city, gleams by the time its executives stroll in with designer shoes and coffee orders longer than apologies. He doesn't mind the quiet, doesn't mind being invisible. He minds other things like the rising cost of Elijah's prescriptions, or how fast the hospital bills arrive compared to how slow the insurance approvals crawl in. Back home, in their tiny one-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a building with no working elevator, Elijah, Darius's 12-year-old son, sleeps under superhero bedsheets. But not the flashy Marvel kind. Elijah draws his own. Quiet heroes, ones who blend in, who listen before they act, who fix things without ever being noticed. That's how he sees his dad. By 5:10 a.m., Darius is already inside the service entrance of Elian Capital. It's a separate entrance from everyone else, not a rule, just implied. The lobby sparkles, glass walls, stainless steel elevator doors. A giant stone sculpture in the center no one understands, but everyone nods at. Darius moves like muscle memory. Locker room, gloves, bucket, mop, routine. Down on his knees, he scrubs the grout between the tiles on floor 17. That's the executive level. The glass floor elite. If you can see the street from your window, you're not one of them. Jason Langford, the firm's youngest vice president, is one of the first to arrive. Mid-30s, all sharp jawline and sharper suits. His father is Alan Langford, the CEO. Legacy higher, they say, but no one says it to him. Jason walks like someone who's never heard no in a serious tone. He sees Darius. Doesn't say good morning. Never has. Instead, today he smirks, steps a little too close, splashes a bit of his vanilla latte near Darius's just-mopped corner. "Oh, hey D-man," Jason says, sipping. "You missed a spot. You don't want someone important slipping, right?" The 2 assistants behind him giggle. Darius doesn't flinch, doesn't look up, just says evenly, "Yes, sir. I'll take care of it." Jason leans in, like he wants to be heard but not overheard. "Tell me something," he whispers. "You ever get tired of cleaning up other people's shit?" Darius straightens up slowly, looks Jason dead in the eye. "I get tired of people thinking I do it because I couldn't do anything else." There's a pause. Jason blinks, just once, then scoffs and walks off. The assistants don't laugh this time. In the break room, the security staff greet Darius with warm familiarity. Miguel, the night guard, always keeps him a seat. They talk about their kids, football, groceries. "We got a Christmas potluck coming up," Miguel says, tapping a flyer on the wall. You coming, man? Darius hesitates. Elijah's got another appointment that day. But I'll drop off a dish. He always does. Sweet potato casserole. His late wife's recipe. Back at home, Elijah is doing homework on the kitchen table when Darius walks in. The kid's got a blanket around his shoulders and a pencil behind one ear. You draw anything new today? Darius asks, setting down a grocery bag. Yeah, Elijah grins. I drew you. But, like, if you were a superhero. Darius smiles. And what's my power? Cleaning up other people's messes without letting it make you mean. He pauses, then adds, quieter, that's a real power, Dad. Darius kneels beside him, hand on his son's shoulder. He doesn't say anything, just stays there for a moment, holding the silence like a prayer. At work, the tension brews quietly. Jason keeps pushing a line. Sometimes it's a snide comment about Darius's southern accent. Did you just say all? That's adorable. Sometimes it's louder. Don't use the executive restroom. People talk. Other employees notice, but no one steps in. It's not their fight. It never is. One time, an intern named Hannah lingers a little longer at the break room coffee machine. She's watched Darius sweep the same hallway every day for 3 months. You always this early? She asks, tentative. Darius chuckles. I like to get the hard part done before the world wakes up. She offers a shy smile. My granddad cleaned trains. Said the same thing. It's a small moment, but Darius remembers it, because kindness, when it's rare, echoes longer. Then, one Tuesday, something shifts. Darius arrives early, as usual, but Elijah is with him this time. He's got a hospital visit downtown, and their neighbor couldn't watch him. Just sit in the break room. Darius says gently, read. Don't move around, okay? Elijah nods. Jason walks in earlier than usual, sees the kid and frowns. You bringing your family to work now? He says, loud enough for others to hear. Darius explains softly, just for the morning. Just an hour. Jason doesn't care. He stares at Elijah, then Darius with his slow, smug grin. Well, don't let him break anything. Those chairs cost more than most cars where you're from. Elijah hears it. Darius sees the way his son's eyes drop, the way his lips press into a line. That night, when they get home from the hospital, Darius doesn't say much. Elijah goes to bed early. The silence in the room feels heavier than usual. Darius pulls out a small notebook from his work bag, writes something down, closes it, tucks it into a drawer. We won't know what it says, not yet, but everything begins to change after that. A few days later, a quiet shift. The head of PR, Monica Chun, passes Darius in the hallway. She actually stops. You okay? She asks, glancing toward the executive wing. Darius just nods. I'm used to it. She hesitates, then says something that sticks. You shouldn't have to be. And that weekend, on a whim, Hannah, the intern, invites Darius to an open art show downtown. Her brother's friend is showing pieces. Abstract stuff. Darius brings Elijah. It's small, but Elijah's eyes light up. He sees a canvas with blues and reds smeared like motion. He stares at it a long time, then tugs Darius's sleeve. Dad, he whispers, that's what your job feels like. Darius looks, sees chaos, layers, quiet strength under pressure. He swallows hard. Maybe the kid's got a point. The first real blow didn't come with yelling. It came with silence, cold, practiced, strategic. On a Monday morning, Darius clocked in as usual. Floor 17 was quieter than normal, which was odd. Executive meetings usually filled the air with tension and perfume. But that morning, Darius's badge wouldn't open the janitorial closet on 17. Red light. Denied. He tried again. Same result. He walked down to facilities. Asked Marcus, the overnight supervisor, what was going on. Marcus shrugged. I don't know, man. Orders came from upstairs. Some floors got rekeyed. Darius raised an eyebrow. Only my floor? Marcus gave him a look. One that said, don't make me say it. So, Darius started cleaning floors 8 through 16. Floor 17 was off limits now, and no one gave him a reason. That afternoon, while restocking the break room, Darius caught part of a conversation between Jason Langford and a couple of other executives. They weren't whispering. They never did. HR's gonna love this one, Jason laughed. Guy had the nerve to let his kids sit in the exec lounge. Can't wait for the optics when this blows up on social. The others chuckled. One of them said, "Did you actually file a report?" Jason grinned. Didn't have to. Security footage speaks for itself. Brought a kid into a restricted area. That's grounds. Darius stood frozen behind the pantry shelf, hands clenched around a paper towel roll. He realized then this wasn't just about a kid sitting quietly. Jason wanted him gone. That night, Darius didn't tell Elijah. He made dinner like always: eggs, toast, canned beans. They watched a rerun of a nature show about mountain lions. Elijah made up stories for the animals, giving them voices. But Darius barely heard him. Inside, a quiet fury brewed. Not because Jason insulted him. Because his son, his heart, was being turned into a weapon against him. The next day, the passive aggression escalated. Someone accidentally moved his cleaning supplies to a different floor. The coffee machine in the break room was off limits to non-executive staff. A new laminated sign appeared, taped above it. Darius had used that machine every morning for 11 years. And worst of all, his paycheck came late. No notice. No apology. Just a missing deposit. He called HR. No answer. Left 2 voicemails. Nothing. 3 days later, he got a call, not from payroll, but from a compliance officer. "Mr. Owens, we're conducting a review of non-essential staff access to secure spaces," the voice said, cold and practiced. "We're also looking into an incident involving a minor in a restricted zone." Darius felt his jaw tighten. "My son sat in a break room. He didn't touch anything. He was there for 45 minutes. I understand, but policies are policies." Click. No warmth. No concern. Just the slow, grinding gears of bureaucracy, weaponized against someone easy to push. That weekend, Elijah asked him, "Dad, am I in trouble?" Darius blinked. "What do you mean?" "Because I was at your job. Because that man looked at me like I wasn't supposed to be there." Darius swallowed hard, set down his coffee, then knelt beside his son. "You are never in trouble for being with me," he said. "You belong anywhere I am. You hear me?" Elijah nodded, but his eyes were glassy. "I just wanted to see where you work," he whispered. "I thought it'd be cool." The next Monday, Darius showed up early. Earlier than ever. He brought a small digital camera, the cheap kind from the pawn shop, and he started documenting everything. Mop closet locked, coffee signs posted, his badge failing on floor 17, the passive retaliation. But what he didn't know, what no one knew, was that Monica Chun, head of PR, had seen the footage of Jason confronting Elijah, and she wasn't okay with it. Monica had grown up in a first-generation immigrant family. Her father worked night shifts at a textile plant for 20 years. Her mother cleaned houses. She remembered the smell of bleach in her mom's hands, even on weekends. When she saw Elijah's face on the screen, small, nervous, sitting quietly in that big leather chair as Jason barked about boundaries, something in her broke. She didn't say anything to Jason. Not yet, but she started asking around, and what she learned made her stomach turn. Meanwhile, Darius's body started to break down. The stress wasn't just mental, it was physical. He began losing sleep. His appetite faded. His knees, already worn from years of scrubbing tile, ached worse than usual. And then the final blow. Elijah collapsed at school. Heart arrhythmia. Ambulance. ICU. Darius was at work when he got the call. He dropped everything, sprinted out of the building. Left his mop, his badge, everything behind. When he returned 3 days later, bags under his eyes, Elijah stable, but not out of the woods, his locker was empty, a note taped inside. Report to HR before resuming duties. He sat across from the HR rep, who read from a script like she'd done this 1,000 times. Due to concerns regarding professional conduct and unauthorized presence of non-employees in secure zones, we are placing you on unpaid leave pending further review. Darius didn't yell, didn't cry. He just asked, "Do you know my son has a heart condition?" The rep blinked. I'm sorry, I wasn't aware. You are now, he said quietly. He stood, walked out, didn't say goodbye, didn't look back. That night, sitting beside Elijah's hospital bed, Darius stared at the hospital bills again. His hands were shaking. His savings? Nearly gone. His job? Hanging by a thread. His dignity? Still intact. Barely. But something was different this time. He wasn't going to swallow it anymore. He opened the drawer, pulled out the notebook he'd started weeks ago. Inside were names, incidents, dates, photos, notes, and taped to the back cover, a USB drive, the security footage, the one Jason didn't know had been leaked to him by someone inside, someone who'd had enough. That same night, Darius made a decision. Not out of anger, out of love, out of a need to survive, to be seen, to show Elijah what fighting back with truth really looked like. He opened his old laptop, created a new email, typed out a letter not to HR, but to someone else, someone with power and a conscience. Monica Chun. The email was short, respectful, precise. Subject: a concern from a janitor who still believes in integrity. To Monica Chun, PR, Ilian Capital. Ms. Chun, I've never spoken to you directly before, but I know you saw the footage. My name is Darius Owens. I've worked quietly at Ilian for over 11 years. I'm writing not for sympathy, but to be heard, to be human. Attached, you'll find something I think you deserve to see. I hope you'll believe me when I say, this isn't about revenge. It's about my son, and about what kind of men we allow to lead. Thank you for your time. Dio. Monica opened the file. What she saw made her put down her coffee. It wasn't just the confrontation video. It was everything. Photos of locked closets, time-stamped notes about paycheck delays, audio clips where Jason casually joked about cleaning out the help, a picture of Elijah sitting alone, coloring in his sketchpad in the break room. Nothing threatening, nothing wrong, just a boy waiting for his father. Monica closed the laptop, and for the first time since joining the company, she considered breaking protocol. But inside the walls of Ilian Capital, Jason Langford was still untouchable. He strutted through the 17th floor like he owned the air. Every day was a stage, every employee an audience. His father, Alan Langford, rarely stepped in. CEO in name, but aging distracted. Jason was the heir apparent, and he knew it. When Monica requested a meeting with Alan, she was told to send a memo. She didn't. Instead, she called someone else. A contact from her journalism days, Kendra Reyes, now working as a producer for a small but credible local news station, Metropoint Live. Meanwhile, Darius was waiting. He returned to work the next day, unsure of what would happen. Technically still on unpaid leave, he came in anyway. He didn't clean. He didn't clock in. He just walked the hallways slowly. People stared. Whispers followed. In the break room, someone said, "Aren't you supposed to be gone?" He didn't answer. On floor 10, Hannah, the intern, saw him and stood up. "Mr. Owens," she asked, Can I walk with you?" He nodded. They walked in silence for a while. Then she said softly, "You matter here, even if they pretend you don't." That hit harder than she knew. Later that afternoon, Monica finally reached Alan Langford. In his office, surrounded by golf memorabilia and investment awards, she laid it out. The footage, the complaints, the pattern. Alan listened, quietly. When she finished, he leaned back. "Jason's passionate," he said, "and he's under pressure." Monica's hands curled into fists under the table. "He's not under that much pressure," she said. "This isn't a heat-of-the-moment thing. This is a pattern of abuse, and it's been allowed to grow because no one wants to touch it." Alan sighed. "We'll speak to HR." "That won't be enough this time," Monica said. "This will go public." Alan looked at her sharply. Monica didn't blink. "Maybe it should," she added. The system pushed back. The next day, Darius received a letter at home. Certified mail. Notice of termination. Violation of internal conduct policy. It was official now. He was fired. No severance. No warning. Just a signature. No phone call. No meeting. Elijah was sitting on the couch when Darius opened the letter. He didn't speak at first, just sat down beside his son, staring at the words. "Are we going to be okay?" Elijah asked quietly. Darius hesitated, then said, "We're going to be better than okay," and meant it. The next 24 hours moved fast. Monica sent the footage to Kendra at Metropoint Live. By the next morning, Kendra replied with a question. Can he speak on camera? Darius didn't want to be on TV. He didn't like attention. But this wasn't about spotlight anymore. It was about dignity. Yes, he said, but not at a podium. So they met at the hospital. In the waiting room outside Elijah's next checkup, Darius spoke simply. No script, no outrage, just truth. My son is why I took that job. Not because I didn't have dreams, but because I had priorities. The camera caught his hands shaking. Then his voice steadied. But there's something worse than mopping floors. It's letting people treat you like you don't matter and staying silent. The video aired on local news 2 days later. Title, Invisible No More, The Janitor Who Spoke Out. It went viral overnight. Comments poured in. Emails. Phone calls. Some accused him of playing victim. Most were furious on his behalf. Former Elian employees reached out anonymously, shared their own stories. One comment stood out. I remember Darius. I spilled coffee in the elevator once. He smiled, said, "Don't worry, I've got you." He didn't just clean floors. He held space. I hope Elian burns for this. Jason saw the video on his phone in his Tesla. He laughed at first, then saw the views climb and climb. He cursed. By the next morning, investors were asking questions. PR was scrambling. Alan Langford summoned Jason to his office. Monica was there too. What the hell is going on? Alan barked. Jason tried to brush it off. It's a narrative, one side of the story. Monica slid a folder across the table. Multiple sides, multiple voices. Years of it. You didn't just bully one man, you created a culture. Alan stared at the folder, then looked at Jason, and for the first time in a long time, didn't defend him. But the tension wasn't over. The firm offered Darius a quiet settlement. A waiver. NDA. Confidentiality clause. Money, but at the price of silence. Darius read it once, then tore it in half. I don't want hush money, he told Monica. I want change. Monica nodded and picked up the phone. The next day, Elian issued a public statement, a generic apology. We value all employees, diversity matters, working to improve company culture. No names, no direct accountability. But Kendra's follow-up report wasn't generic. She named names, detailed timelines, and ended with a clip of Elijah handing his dad a drawing, Darius in a cape, standing in front of the Elian building. Captioned, Heroes Aren't Always Loud. That night, as Darius tucked Elijah into bed, the boy looked up and asked, Did we win? Darius smiled. Not a big smile, a tired, honest one. We're still fighting, he said, but we're not losing anymore. 3 days after the news story broke, Darius found himself sitting in a cafe he couldn't afford, nursing a black coffee he didn't even want. Across from him sat Lawrence Grant, a civil rights attorney who'd reached out after watching the Metropoint segment. He was sharp-suited, mid-40s, with eyes that didn't blink often. You have a case, Lawrence said, tapping the folder between them. Hostile work environment, wrongful termination, possible ADA retaliation if we factor in your son's condition. Darius looked out the window. The city bustled like nothing had happened. I'm not sure I want to sue them, he said quietly. Lawrence blinked. You'd be in the right, and you'd win. I know, Darius said, but what happens after I win? I get a check, maybe a headline, and then they go back to business. Meanwhile, the next guy they don't like, he's next. Lawrence leaned back, studied him. You want structural change, he said. Darius nodded. Well, Lawrence said, sliding the folder back toward him. Then we have to make them feel it where it hurts. Not in court, in their story. That night, Darius sat beside Elijah's hospital bed again. The machines beeped rhythmically. Elijah was half asleep when he mumbled, They called you a janitor on TV. Darius turned. I am a janitor. Elijah shook his head slightly. You're my dad. That's better. Darius exhaled slowly and finally cried. Not the loud kind, not the broken kind, just the quiet release of a man who'd carried too much for too long. Back at Elian Capital, the fire wasn't dying, it was spreading. Hannah, the intern, posted anonymously on LinkedIn. A simple post. I worked at Elian Capital. I saw a man treated like furniture because he wore a name tag and not a title. That man had more integrity than half the building. The post went viral. Former employees joined in. Then current ones. Even clients started pulling out of meetings. Behind closed doors, Alan Langford was livid. He summoned Monica again. This is an optics disaster. Monica replied calmly, it's not optics. It's reality finally catching up to you. Meanwhile, Darius got a call. From a school. Not Elijah's, but one across town. They saw the story. Saw his past, the years he taught history in Birmingham. The awards. The recommendation, letters buried under dust and time. They wanted him to come speak to their students about dignity, about resilience, about what it means to be overlooked and to rise anyway. It was the first time in years Darius felt seen for who he was before the mop and bucket. Still, something inside him was unraveling. At home, he couldn't sleep. He found himself pacing, checking hospital bills, rechecking them. There was no insurance now, no income. The GoFundMe, started by someone online, was helping, but the pressure was mounting. One night, around 2 a.m., he got up and walked the streets. No destination, just motion. He ended up in front of Elian's building. He looked up at the glass tower, lit from within like nothing had changed. And, for a brief moment, he felt small again. The doubt crept in. What if none of this matters? What if they forget in a week? What if I just fade back into silence? The next morning, he almost declined the school talk. But Elijah grabbed his hand from the hospital bed. Dad, he said, you always tell me to show up, even when it's scary. Darius smiled faintly. Guess I should take my own advice. At the school auditorium, students gathered. Teachers whispered, curious. Darius walked to the podium in his only dress shirt, collar frayed just slightly. He didn't speak like a politician or a preacher. He spoke like a father, like a man who used to teach 10th grade history and never forgot how to hold a room. You know what's funny? He started. The people who ignored me at work, some of them had my job description memorized, but couldn't tell you my name. A few kids laughed, but my son, he knows my middle name. He knows I hate cold eggs. He knows I sing Otis Redding off key. He sees me. Then he paused. That's what we all want. To be seen. Not as problems. Not as positions. But as people. The room went quiet. And then came applause. Not the polite kind. The earned kind. Afterward, a young teacher approached him. I used to teach where you did, she said. We lost half the staff after budget cuts. I remember your name. You were the one who stayed late with the kids who couldn't read at grade level. Darius blinked. It had been over a decade. I never forgot that, she said. Something in his chest broke open again. But this time it wasn't pain. It was purpose. Back at Elian, Jason was finally feeling heat he couldn't spin. Shareholders were demanding a leadership review. Clients were pulling deals. Alan Langford called an emergency board meeting. Jason assumed he'd be defended, like always. But this time, Monica was invited in with a file of testimonies and a vote. And this time, Alan didn't shield his son. Not fully. We need to clean house, one board member said. Monica didn't smile. She just said, start with the ones who thought cleaning was beneath them. That night, Darius got a call from Kendra, the journalist. The board's moving, she said. It won't be public yet, but it's happening. Darius nodded. I don't need it to be loud. Kendra paused. But people need to know what quiet strength looks like. Darius looked at Elijah's newest drawing. Him, arms stretched, holding up a crumbling building like a superhero. He said, then tell them the truth. All of it. He didn't expect what happened next. Kendra ran a third segment. Not about the abuse, but about the aftermath. She showed the school speech, the community support. She ended the piece with a quote from one of Elijah's drawings. Kindness doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong enough to stay soft in a hard world. The video hit harder than the first two. Suddenly, Darius was everywhere. And for once, not as a headline, but as a lesson. By the end of that week, the name Darius Owens was no longer just associated with a janitor. It was associated with resilience, with integrity, with something that even the wealthiest executives at Elian couldn't manufacture, respect. But Darius hadn't seen any of it. He was too busy filling out Medicaid forms, negotiating payment plans for Elijah's neck surgery, and calculating how long their remaining savings would last. Then, on a rainy Friday morning, he received a phone call. Not from a journalist, not from a lawyer, but from a man named Benjamin Holtz, a former teacher from Birmingham. Darius Owens, the voice crackled through the speaker. You remember me? 9th grade history department, Carver High. Darius stood in the middle of the kitchen, blinking in disbelief. Ben, still got that spine, huh? Ben laughed. Saw you on the news, brother. I didn't even recognize you at first. But that voice, I'd know it anywhere. They talked for over an hour. Old memories, former students. Then Ben said something that shifted everything. You know, we used to joke you had a mind made for more than chalk and blackboards. Said you were going to be a principal someday, or a state rep. Darius chuckled. Those were dreams from a different life. Doesn't mean they died. Then Ben added, there's a school down here looking for a dean. They don't care about your title. They care about your character. The next day, Darius sat at Elijah's bedside with a laptop open. You think I should go back into schools? He asked. Elijah blinked slowly. His oxygen mask hissed with each breath. You never left, he said. You were always teaching. Just different classrooms. Darius stared at him. That kid could cut through noise like no one else. Later that week, Monica called again. You should come back, she said. Darius frowned. To Elian? Not as a janitor, she said. As a speaker. Apparently, in an act of scrambling PR, Elian was hosting a company value symposium. They wanted Darius to speak on dignity, equity, and leadership. Irony thick in the air. Do you want me to sugarcoat it? He asked Monica. I want you to say whatever you need to say, she said. People need to hear it. Especially him. Darius didn't ask who. He already knew. The symposium was hosted in Elian's grand atrium. All marble floors, dangling LED chandeliers, rows of pristine chairs lined up like a gallery of corporate gilt. When Darius walked in, not in uniform, but in a simple button-down and slacks, you could hear the shift. Some whispered. Some avoided eye contact. A few, mostly interns and assistants, nodded at him. A silent salute. Monica introduced him plainly. This is Mr. Owens. He was one of our longest-serving employees. Today, he speaks as someone whose voice was ignored until it wasn't. Darius stepped up to the podium. No slideshow. No rehearsed applause cues. Just truth. I used to enter this building before any of you, he began. Not because I was more important, but because I wasn't. That was the message, anyway. A few people stiffened in their chairs. I scrubbed floors where million-dollar deals were made, cleaned windows where you looked out over the city, and forgot who was holding your ladder. He paused. I was invisible. Until I wasn't. He looked toward the front row. Jason Langford sat there. Arms crossed, face unreadable. Darius didn't flinch. He continued. There's this idea that value comes from your title, your paycheck, the number of people who answer to you. But I want to ask you this. Who answers for you when you treat someone like they don't matter? Silence. Raw. Heavy. I brought my son here one day, just for an hour. He was sick. He just wanted to see where his dad worked. And I watched someone with more power than compassion turn that moment into a weapon. His voice cracked just slightly. He saw my boy like a problem. I saw him like my purpose. Another pause. No one moved. Darius ended simply. I'm not here for revenge. I'm not here for applause. I'm here to remind you that power without empathy is a disease. And the cure starts with remembering we all clean up someone's mess. The only difference is whether we do it with dignity or deny others theirs. He stepped down. There was no music, no MC, just a room full of people too ashamed to clap, too moved not to. That night, something extraordinary happened. Monica leaked the uncut version of the footage to Kendra. Not just Jason mocking Elijah, but the internal memos, the HR neglect, the ignored complaints from other employees of color. The story broke again, this time nationally. Headline: The Janitor Who Spoke and the System That Tried to Silence Him. The fallout was swift. Jason Langford was suspended indefinitely pending investigation. Alan Langford issued a formal apology on video. Monica was offered a seat on the board. And Darius? He didn't go back. He didn't need to. A week later, he got a thick envelope in the mail. Inside was an offer letter from Springwood Community Academy, Dean of Student Affairs. Full-time, full benefits, housing support, handwritten at the bottom. We don't care how long it's been. We just care that you never gave up. Principal R. Holmes. Darius showed the letter to Elijah. The boy grinned weakly. Do I get to draw a superhero for their hallway? Darius smiled back. You better start sketching. And then, the final reveal. Metropoint ran a follow-up. Turns out, one of Elijah's drawings, the one with Darius holding up the Elian building, was submitted to a national children's art contest. He won. The prize? A $50,000 donation to the family of the winning artist for medical bills and educational support. When asked who inspired him, Elijah said simply, "My dad, he doesn't just clean buildings. He holds people up." The cameras caught Darius's reaction as the news was delivered live. He didn't cry. Not then. He just covered his face for a moment, then looked up and whispered, "Thank you." Not to the camera, to the universe, to whatever force had helped him hold on just long enough. When power breaks, it doesn't explode, it fractures. Quiet at first, then fast. Elian Capital spent the first 48 hours after the viral story dropped in damage control mode. Public statements, legal reviews, emergency board meetings behind glass doors, press releases that said everything and nothing. But none of it worked. Because the internet doesn't forget. And for once, it wasn't just watching, it was remembering. Remembering every microaggression, every underpaid worker, every silence that followed injustice. And the face of that awakening was Darius Owens. Jason Langford returned to the office briefly under the guise of cooperating with the investigation. But people didn't look at him the same. The air around him changed. Respect became fear. Admiration turned to avoidance. In meetings, executives who once clung to his every word now looked at their phones. Assistants moved their desks. No more inside jokes. No more shoulder claps. He tried to hold court like always, bragging about closing deals, making veiled shots at the cancel crowd. But the silence that followed was louder than anything he said. For the first time, Jason realized he wasn't feared. He was resented. Monica, on the other hand, was rising not because she asked to, but because she had earned it. She began leading internal meetings on company ethics, culture restructuring, and inclusion policies. The irony wasn't lost on her. A year ago, those topics were seen as fluff. Now, they were front and center. In one such meeting, someone asked her bluntly, "Do you think the company can be saved?" She thought for a long moment, then answered, "Only if it learns to listen to the people it never let speak." Darius watched the chaos unfold from a distance. He didn't celebrate Jason's fall. That was never the point. But he did feel something new, stillness, the kind that comes not from winning, but from surviving with your soul intact. He now spent his mornings preparing for his new role at Springwood Academy. Lesson planning, reading student behavioral trends, calling Ben for updates. In the evenings, he sat beside Elijah, whose condition was slowly stabilizing. The medication helped. So did hope. But just because the public tide turned didn't mean the system gave up easily. One morning, Darius got a call from an unfamiliar number. Mr. Owens said a clipped voice, "I'm from Elian's legal department. We'd like to offer you a revised compensation package. This time, no NDA." He raised an eyebrow. You're offering me money to make the story go away? No, sir. We're offering restitution. You were mistreated. We'd like to make it right. Darius paused. Then, why do you need my signature? Silence on the other end. He hung up. That same day, a manila envelope showed up at his door. Inside, a check for $120,000. No cover letter. No contact name. Just a sticky note. No strings attached. Elijah picked it up off the table. Are you going to cash it? Darius looked at the check for a long time. Then said, no, but we'll copy it. Frame it. Remind ourselves what our silence is worth and why we don't sell it. A few weeks later, Metropoint Live aired a final segment. This time, it wasn't about Darius. It was about the system, an expose on workplace abuse, economic inequality, and what happens when people in power go unchecked. But at the end of the segment, they returned, briefly, to him, a shot of Darius walking across the campus of Springwood Academy in the early morning, holding a lunch bag, a second one in his hand. For a student he knew sometimes skipped breakfast, no voiceover, just a single line of text on screen. The man who cleaned floors now builds futures. Back at Elian, the shakeups kept coming. HR heads were replaced, internal audits launched, more stories emerged, not just from janitors, but from receptionists, night guards, interns, people no one had ever interviewed before. A few of them reached out to Darius directly. One woman, Maria, sent him a voice message. I worked 5 years at the front desk. Never got a raise. One time I stayed late to help an exec with her reports, and she said, thanks, Han, that's why we keep you girls around. I never said anything. But then I saw your video. I cried for 3 hours. You made me feel real. Darius saved the message. Listened to it 3 times that night. But not everyone was rooting for him. He started getting anonymous emails, subject lines like, hope you're proud of yourself. You'll never work again. You're just another attention seeker. He ignored most of them, but one stuck. It read, you think you're the only one who's suffered? Some of us earned our power. You just got lucky with the internet. People like you ruin good men. Darius stared at it, then closed his laptop, and took Elijah for a walk. Because the truth was, they didn't ruin good men. They exposed bad ones. At Springwood, his first day came quietly. No ribbon cutting. No applause. Just a few students staring curiously as he introduced himself. Mr. Owens, Dean of Student Affairs. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to listen and help you stand when you feel like no one sees you. One student, a tall kid named Jameer, raised his hand. Are you the guy from the internet? Darius smiled. That depends. Did he look tired and a little too old for social media? The room laughed. Jameer nodded. Cool. My mom said you're a real one. By month's end, Elijah was strong enough to walk on his own again. They visited the art museum downtown, the one that displayed youth contest winners. Right in the lobby, Elijah's drawing. A plaque beside it read, to all the quiet heroes, your strength is louder than you think. Darius stood there for a long time, not because of the plaque, but because he finally saw his reflection in the glass and didn't flinch. Recognition doesn't always come with trophies. Sometimes it comes with eye contact, with someone finally saying your name like it matters. For Darius, it started in the grocery store. He was reaching for a bag of rice when a woman beside him said softly, I saw you on TV. He turned. She was maybe in her late 60s, gray, twist-out hair, cane in one hand, determination in the other. I used to clean hotel rooms, she continued, all my life. No one ever said, thank you. I just wanted you to know. You made me feel like it meant something. Darius didn't know what to say. So, he did the only thing that felt right. He hugged her. No words, just warmth. That was the first time. Then came more. A man at the post office gave him free stamps. A teenager at the library whispered, you remind me of my dad. He's a quiet fighter too. A nurse at the hospital told Elijah, your father is a good man. You must be proud. At Springwood Academy, the school settled into a rhythm. Darius wore many hats now. Mentor, hallway watcher, problem solver, late-night email responder. He learned students' names, their stories, who needed extra lunch, who was quiet because they were shy, and who was quiet because they were hurting. He became known for what he didn't say as much as for what he did. He didn't yell, didn't shame. He just showed up every day, fully, present, like he'd once wished someone would do for him. One morning, Principal Holmes walked into his office. He sat down without speaking, placed a small envelope on the desk. Darius looked at it. "What's this?" "Read it," Holmes said. Inside was a typed letter on city school district letterhead. To Mr. Darius Owens, in recognition of your courage, integrity, and impact on education, both inside and outside the classroom, we are proud to nominate you for the Citywide Educator Resilience Award. Your story has not only moved this city, it has reminded us what true leadership looks like. Darius sat there in silence for a long time, then said, "I didn't even make it back into a classroom yet." Holmes smiled. "You didn't need 4 walls to teach the whole damn city." Meanwhile, Elijah was getting stronger. His color returned. He could walk longer distances without losing breath. And his sketches, they exploded with new life. Color, detail, confidence. One night, he brought a new one into the living room. "Want to see?" he asked. Darius looked up from his laptop. The drawing showed a man standing on a sidewalk. Not in a cape, not in armor, just in a work shirt with a lunch bag in one hand and a little boy's hand in the other. Behind them, a crowd of people all standing still, watching, listening. Darius looked at it for a long time, then asked, "What's this one called?" Elijah shrugged. "Just Dad." A week later, Springwood held its annual student assembly. This one was different. They'd invited parents, local officials, community members. Principal Holmes opened the stage with a few words, then said, "Before we close, we have someone very important we want to thank." He nodded toward the side of the auditorium. Darius was confused, until he saw Elijah sitting in the front row with a wide grin. Holmes continued, "This man taught us that silence isn't always weakness, that doing the right thing when no one's watching is still worth doing. That dignity isn't something you earn through status, it's something you protect through how you treat people." Darius slowly rose as the auditorium began to applaud. He walked to the front. No speech prepared, no intention of even going on stage, but Principal Holmes whispered, "Just let them thank you." So he did. When he reached the microphone, the applause quieted. He looked out over the crowd. Parents, teachers, kids in oversized hoodies, board members with folded arms. He spoke plainly. "I didn't come here to be seen. I came here to serve." He paused, looked at Elijah. "But I've learned that being seen, it matters. Not for the praise, but for the truth. Because when people don't see you, they stop thinking you feel. Hurt, dream, fight." He stepped back. Didn't need to say more. The standing ovation that followed wasn't loud, it was long. The kind that wraps around you like a promise. After the assembly, a woman approached him. Early 30s, tear lines down her cheeks. She said, "I work in corporate law. I saw what they did to you. I've seen it happen to others, and I never said anything." Darius shook his head, gently. "You're saying something now." Then she handed him something. A sealed envelope. "This is for your son," she said. "Just a small donation. Tell him to keep drawing." Inside, a check for $2,500. No name, just a note. For the boy who made the world look up. Later that week, Kendra, the journalist, invited Darius to speak on a podcast. Topic: Quiet Power, the people who change the world without making noise. He almost said no, but Elijah said, "You should. Some kids don't have a dad who talks like you do." So he went. On the show, he said, "We always think justice is loud. Protests, headlines, speeches. But sometimes justice is one man not breaking when the system wants him to. Sometimes it's staying kind even when the world punishes you for it." The episode went viral. Again. But this time, it didn't make Darius anxious. Because now, he wasn't just surviving the spotlight. He was standing in it without flinching. Recognition didn't make him rich, didn't erase the years of being overlooked, mocked, dismissed, but it did something better. It told the truth, out loud, where everyone could hear it, and most importantly, where Elijah could hear it too. Legacy doesn't always begin with age. Sometimes it begins the moment you stop surviving and start building. For Darius Owens, that moment came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Springwood Academy had just finished classes. Students filtered out in noisy waves, laughing, texting, chasing each other down the steps. Darius stayed behind in the main hallway, locking up his small office. As he turned off the light, he noticed someone sitting alone on the bench near the exit. A boy, 9th grade, hoodie pulled over his head, shoes scuffed, backpack unopened. Darius recognized him. His name was Tyrell. New transfer. Trouble in his file. Not trouble himself, just the kind of student who made teachers sigh when his name showed up on rosters. Darius walked over. "You good?" he asked gently. Tyrell shrugged. "Miss my bus." "You call home." "No one home." Darius didn't ask more, just sat down next to him. They sat in silence for a while. Then Tyrell said, "I saw your video." Darius smiled faintly. "Which one?" "The one where you told those suit people about power and dignity. You watched the whole thing?" "Twice." Pause. Tyrell added, "It made me think, like maybe people do notice guys like me, even if they pretend not to." Darius didn't give a speech, didn't turn it into a teachable moment. He just said, "You're seen. By me. Right now." That's a start. That night, Darius sat at his kitchen table with Elijah, helping with science homework. "You ever think about what you want to leave behind?" Elijah asked out of nowhere. Darius blinked. "You mean like a legacy?" "Yeah." Darius leaned back. "I used to think legacy was something big, a building with your name on it, a speech that got quoted." He looked at Elijah. "Now, I think it's smaller, like making someone feel safe, or heard, or less alone." Elijah nodded, scribbling in his notebook. "Sounds like a pretty big legacy to me." The next morning, Darius walked into Principal Holmes's office with a proposal. He placed a single-page document on the desk. Holmes picked it up. "Read silently. The second shift program. A peer mentorship initiative for students with disciplinary records or difficult home lives, named after the working people who do the unseen jobs, the second shift of society, led by volunteer staff, alumni, and community mentors." At the bottom, a hand-drawn logo from Elijah, a superhero in janitor's gear holding a flashlight, lighting a path forward. Holmes looked up. "You want to run this?" "I need to," Darius said. Holmes smiled. "Approved." Over the next month, the program took shape. Every Wednesday after school, a group of students gathered in the small gym. Tyrell, Jameer, Layla, a few others. They came because Darius didn't talk down to them. He didn't lecture. He asked questions like, "What's something you wish a teacher had asked you? What's something you've survived that no one gives you credit for? What's a part of yourself you're proud of, even if nobody claps for it?" One girl said, "I help my grandma bathe every night." A boy whispered, "I haven't cried since my dad left, but I want to." They were real, unpolished, brave. Darius listened to every word like it was gospel. Meanwhile, news of the program spread. A local community center reached out. Then a youth shelter. Then a retired social worker who offered to volunteer. By the end of the semester, the second shift had 22 students for mentors and one motto painted above the door. "We don't fix people here. We fight, so they don't get broken." One afternoon, Darius got a call from Miguel, the night security guard from Elian. They hadn't spoken in months. "Brother," Miguel said, "you have no idea what you started." He explained how Elian's new HR department had begun implementing anonymous reporting tools, required empathy training, pay audits. The janitorial staff now had a seat in monthly operations meetings. Darius said nothing at first, just let it settle. Then he said, "You still making that bomb chili for the holiday potluck?" Miguel laughed. "Only if you bring the sweet potatoes." Later that week, Darius and Elijah walked past a mural being painted on the side of a community art center. The artist, a woman in overalls with paint on her face, was brushing the final touches on a tall figure in work boots, holding a broom like a staff, with children at his feet. Elijah tugged Darius's sleeve. "Dad," he whispered, "is that you?" The woman turned and grinned. "I was hoping you'd walk by," she said. This city needed to remember what strength really looks like. Darius stared at the wall. He didn't see himself. He saw every person who had ever worked unnoticed, every man and woman who had carried the world quietly. Then came a letter in the mail, handwritten, elegant cursive, no return address. "Mr. Owens, you don't know me. I worked as a janitor at a hotel in Atlanta for 19 years. I lost my job during the pandemic. I thought the world forgot about people like me. Then I saw your story. And for the first time in a long time, I stood up straighter. I looked in the mirror and saw more than tired eyes. I saw dignity. Thank you. Ruth." Darius put the letter in his desk drawer. Top left, right next to Elijah's drawing. Recognition fades. Awards get dusty. News cycles move on. But impact? That lingers. In the way a student learns to raise their hand again. In the way a father finds strength to carry just one more day. In the way a man, once invisible, becomes a lighthouse for others just trying to make it to shore. Change never starts as a wave. It begins as a murmur, a side conversation, a glance that turns into a question. And when enough people start asking the same question, why did we let this happen for so long? The answers begin to shift the ground beneath everything. It started at the school board meeting. Normally, the room was half empty, parents half listening, bureaucrats half caring. But this time, the back rows were packed. Cameras, local journalists, even a few kids holding hand-painted signs. "We are the second shift. See us. Hear us. Fight for us." Darius wasn't on the agenda. He didn't even plan to speak. But Principal Holmes stood up midway through the meeting and said, "We have someone in this room whose impact deserves more than 3 minutes at the mic. I cede my time to Mr. Owens." Darius walked to the podium. No notes, just history in his chest. He spoke calmly. "I've spent most of my life in quiet places, mopping floors before dawn, sitting with kids who didn't believe they mattered, telling my son he could dream bigger than the world told him to." He looked around the room. "I'm not asking for applause. I'm asking for reflection on how many voices you've ignored, how many potential leaders we lose when we let power run unchecked." Then he said, "If one janitor can shake a skyscraper, imagine what a room full of people with their eyes open can do." No one moved for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then another. And suddenly, the whole room was on its feet. Not in celebration, but in respect. The next day, a public high school in Detroit called Springwood. They asked to replicate the second shift program. Then a school in Oakland. Then one in New Orleans. Within a month, Darius was invited to speak at an education summit. He wore the same shirt he wore the day he spoke at Elian, not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder. You don't need new clothes to carry an old truth. Meanwhile, Elijah's story, the little boy who drew the janitor superhero, continued to ripple. The mural based on his drawing was featured in a regional art magazine. He was invited to co-host a virtual workshop with other young artists from underserved communities. His health, though still delicate, was improving. One evening, after a doctor's appointment, he said, "Dad, when I'm better, can I help teach other kids to draw heroes too?" Darius smiled. "You already are." At Elian Capital, the fallout continued. An independent diversity audit exposed years of inequitable hiring, salary gaps, and retaliation patterns. 3 senior executives resigned. The board issued a full public apology, this time with names, accountability, and a 12-month transformation plan. They asked Darius to consult on ethics and training. He declined the official position. But he did agree to visit. Just once. The day he returned, it was quiet, not awkward, reverent. Janitors nodded at him like he was family. Security guards gave half smiles and fist bumps. Even some of the assistants hugged him. In the break room, the coffee machine now had a new laminated sign above it. For everyone. and in the lobby, behind the front desk, hung a framed quote. Respect must be earned, not assumed. D. Owens. He didn't linger long, just long enough to know that change was real. Then he left. Back at Springwood, a student named Layla asked him, "Do you ever miss your old job?" Darius thought for a second. Sometimes, he said, not the title, but the quiet moments. The way you can measure a person by how they treat someone with nothing to offer. Layla tilted her head. You still do that now? He chuckled. Guess I do. One night, Kendra from Metropoint called again. We're planning a full-length feature, she said. National audience. You, Elijah, the mural, the second shift, the whole journey. Darius hesitated. He'd told this story so many times now, he was tired of hearing his own name. But Kendra added, it's not about you anymore. It's about what you started. That changed everything. The feature aired 2 months later. Title, The Man Who Refused to Disappear. It was honest, unpolished, raw. It showed Darius walking to work at dawn. Elijah sketching quietly. The empty break room where it all began. And the ending? A student from second shift, Tyrell, reading a poem he'd written. They said I was angry. They said I was broken, but Mr. Owens listened, and suddenly I was a story worth telling. Maybe I wasn't a problem. Maybe I was just waiting for a witness. The world responded again. Donations to Springwood surged. A national nonprofit offered to fund second shift chapters in 5 states. Darius was offered a book deal. He said no. But he agreed to help develop a curriculum for schools that wanted to do more than talk about justice. And everywhere he went, people didn't just say thank you. They said, because of you, I spoke up. Because of you, I saw someone I'd ignored. Because of you, I believed I could start over. Not all responses were grand. Some were small, almost unnoticeable. A kid holding the door open for the janitor at a gas station. A manager giving her cleaning crew seats at the staff meeting. A sign on a city bus that read, every rider, every role, every story matters. Darius noticed every one of them. Because when you've spent your life invisible, nothing goes unseen. One evening, Elijah asked him, do you feel like this is over? Darius smiled. No, but I think the part where I had to prove I was human, that part's done. The next morning, he walked into second shift's Wednesday session. Tyrell was already there, setting out chairs. Jameer had printed handouts. Layla had baked muffins from her grandmother's recipe. They looked at Darius, waiting. He just nodded and said, all right, who wants to lead today? And then he sat down. Because legacy isn't built in the center. It's built by stepping aside and letting the next one rise. It was a Sunday. No headlines, no speaking engagements, no lesson plans, just Darius and Elijah sitting on a park bench beneath a sprawling oak tree, watching a group of kids chase each other through the grass. Spring had just started to bloom. Wind soft, air clean. Everything felt like a pause, not an ending, but a moment to breathe. Darius sipped from a cup of coffee that had gone lukewarm. He didn't mind. Some things were better when they cooled. Elijah sat beside him with a sketchpad in his lap, pencil in hand. His breathing was calm. No machines, no wires, just the slow, steady rhythm of healing. Darius looked at him, really looked. The boy he'd carried, fought for, cried over, still here, still his. A little girl ran past them, tripped, fell hard on her hands and knees. Scraped palms. Tears welled instantly. Before her mother could reach her, Elijah had already stood, knelt beside her and said gently, it's okay. That happens sometimes. He didn't offer to fix it, just sat next to her until she stopped crying. Then he walked back, sat down beside his dad again. She's all right, he said. Darius didn't say anything for a moment. Then, you didn't try to solve it. No, Elijah said. She just needed someone to sit with her. Darius smiled slowly. Guess you've been paying attention. They walked home later, the sun low behind them, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. As they passed the community center, Elijah paused. The mural, the one based on his drawing, was being touched up by a new artist. A younger girl this time, maybe 16. Focused. Intent. She looked up, saw them, and waved. I'm adding more people, she said, making it bigger. Darius nodded. Looks good. He didn't need his face on it. Never asked for that. But as he looked closer, he noticed something new. A small figure in the background, holding a mop, but standing tall, head high, not as a joke, not as a symbol, as a pillar. That night, Darius tucked Elijah into bed. The boy was quiet, more tired than usual. Before Darius could switch off the light, Elijah said, "Do you ever think Mom would have been proud?" Darius froze, then sat down at the edge of the bed. "She would have been proud of you," he said softly, "and maybe she'd be a little surprised by me." Elijah blinked. "Why?" "Because for a long time, I thought being strong meant staying quiet, just taking it." He looked at his hands. But strength, real strength, is knowing when to speak, and doing it even when your voice shakes. Elijah reached over and squeezed his hand. No words, just presence. The next morning, Darius found a letter in the mail. No return address. Again, inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed, "Dear Mr. Owens, you don't know me. I work in government, high up. I've sat in too many rooms where men like you were talked about, but never spoken to. Your story forced me to ask questions about policy, about hiring, about what we call merit. You won't see your name on any bill, but know this, the ripple started with you. Keep going. At the bottom, no name, just one who finally opened their eyes." Darius folded the letter carefully, tucked it into the back of his notebook, the same one he'd started all those months ago, where he first documented injustice. Now it held testimony, proof that pain, when carried with grace, could become fuel for something greater. Later that week, he was back at Springwood. The second shift group had grown again, new faces, new stories. A student named Malik asked him, "Do you think we're going to change the world?" Darius looked at him. "No," he said. "I think you are. I'm just here to hold the door open long enough for you to get through." Malik grinned. "Bet." The final scene comes one evening. No music, no narration, just a hallway, dimly lit. Darius walking slowly, keys in hand, locking up classrooms one by one. He stops by a door left ajar, peeks inside, sees a group of students huddled around a table, laughing, helping each other with homework. No teacher, just them. Together. He doesn't interrupt. He just smiles, nods, closes the door, gently, walks down the hallway, and out into the night. The camera follows him for a beat, then pans up to a banner on the wall. "Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you build while you're still here." And as the screen fades to black, we hear Elijah's voice, not in person, but from a recording he once made for his art contest. "My dad is a hero. But not because he's loud, not because he fights people. He's a hero because he stayed kind, even when it hurt. And now people see him. We rise not by stepping over others, but by lifting what they were told to carry alone." Fade out.